Okay, good. The slide's up. We'll get started. Thank you for being here. Safety has been a passion of mine for many, many years. And I believe strongly that working with safety is a very honorable profession. You have the opportunity to change lives and many times to save lives. And so there's really not much more important than that. And today we're going to talk a little bit about the cost of safety. And I'm going to try to look at this from a couple of different perspectives to stimulate some thought, maybe some questions that you may have. So my introduction, has already been given, but this just shows my favorite person in the world, my wife, and one of our favorite places in the world, Yellowstone. We've got 5 kids, 19 grandkids. I've been doing this over 35 years with safety. I was a safety director in the high explosives industry, and then 20 plus years as the insurance risk control consultant. And then now working with the Utah Safety Council as an instructor and consultant for on-site visits. So cost of safety, a little brief overview. This is a topic, obviously, that you could probably spend at least half a day, maybe a full day, really checking into all of the research and the teachings and best practices on this. And I should note here that in the Safety Essentials class, this is a section of that where you go into even more detail, and we'll have time to today. So that might be something you want to put on your list to check out that class. Very good class and a lot of good instructors that teach it. So ask yourself this question: is safety a cost or an investment? Or is it both? Or are you on, a scale where you're moving your organization upward, to be more safety oriented, to have better safety buy-in, and it might still be considered a cost, but it's starting to become considered an investment by your leaders and employees. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind as we talk about this. And again, feel free, put some questions in the chat box if you'd like more explanation, or you've got a thought or a question, please go ahead and do that. I'd be happy to try to discuss that a little bit later. So many of you have already heard about the hazard pyramid, Heinrich's triangle. So Heinrich was actually in the insurance business, and this was a long time ago when he did this, but it's held on validity for many, many years. And although today there's lots of talk about the hazards that lead to serious injury or death as being something that was not captured as fully in this as maybe it could be, and that's something that's maybe being talked about by some of the top safety professionals in the world and research going on about that. But even though that's going on, this is still being used and is still considered really valuable and really quite correct in the analysis that was done, even all these years later. So I'll tell you a quick story. I took this when I was a safety director, and I actually took all of the incidents that our high explosives company had for a period of 5 or 6 years. And then we did some analysis to see how it fit in the Heinrich triangle. And we didn't have quite as much good information as we needed with the at-risk behaviors because we weren't, going out and tracking them as well. And that led us to starting to do more observations and tracking data with that. But what we found is that we were pretty darn close with these numbers. It was really almost right on for, having some recordable incidents, say around 330 lost time, then that leads to 1 fatality. So, there's a lot that this talks about here. You can go into a lot of detail with it, but generally speaking, the theory is that if you can reduce the number of at-risk behaviors, in-house first aids, recordables, and lost times, then the likelihood of having that fatality is much lower. And I believe that's just kind of a foundational principle of safety that we found to be pretty true. But like I said, there's this kind of new theory of serious incidents and fatalities. What are the things, the activities you're doing that lead to those, and that those probably need a little bit more focus than just the general ideas listed here. And if you're interested in information on that later, I could probably provide you some. So the tip of the iceberg, you know, you're going down in a ship, heading along the ocean, maybe it's the Titanic, you see this big iceberg. It's really only the tip, as you well know. And if you look at it from workers' compensation direct cost perspective, these are the medical costs, the wage indemnity, the insurance claim costs, and the direct money that's paid out for a claim. That's a lot. That's a lot of money involved just at the tip of the iceberg. So let's see what else we've got. So the bulk of the iceberg, these are all the other costs, the indirect costs. And these are usually calculated to be 3 to 9 times larger than the tip. Look at all of these things. And this is not a complete comprehensive list. This is a good list with most of the main ones, but it's not totally comprehensive. Just look at a couple of these: claims paperwork, time for injury, lost productivity by the injured, by the others that sit around and talk about it and wonder what happened, investigation costs, a group of people getting together to look into this. Why did it happen? How did it happen? How can we prevent it? Overtime to replace the injured worker, scrap and rework costs. You know, from you have somebody come in that's replacing them, maybe they're not quite as well trained and as good, so they've got to redo some of the things that they do. You got to train, retrain replacements. It's a fact that when there's injuries in any workplace, it lowers employee morale. People care about their coworkers in general. And when something bad happens in a company, it's a tough thing. You know, people think, well, am I going to be next? You know, I mean, is the company treating this employee fairly? All kinds of things get talked about. And, you know, I got to see it from both points of view because in my high explosive days, I was actually a union officer. So I'd hear it from the employee side and really get to understand how they feel. But then when I was in management as a safety manager, you know, then I really heard management side of it. And both sides are important. Both sides need to be addressed. Public image, boy, this is a big one. So the big insurance company I worked for, we'd talk about case studies about companies that had gone out of business because their public image was so tainted from maybe a series of serious injuries for employees or incidents like fires or things like that. And then there's a lot of miscellaneous other costs. In fact, I've got this. I don't know, it probably won't show up very good on the screen. Can you see it at all? But I've got this handout that I could get to Annabelle and Hannah. We could make this available if anyone's interested. It goes into even a little bit more detail. So the biggest losses for companies, you know, and even small companies, one thing to think about is one of their biggest losses in the whole company, you know, where they're losing money, is from incidents. And they're really only looking at the direct costs, and they're still thinking this is huge. but they're missing a lot. And are they missing it on purpose? Of course not. They're busy running the company. They're busy trying to understand manufacturing costs and supply chain issues and union issues and pay issues and all that. So it's your opportunity to help teach them and coach them, because now you're recognized as a valued part of the organization. Really, just 10 to 15 years ago, it was pretty tough. Some companies just looked at it as a have-to position. You know, we're not really going to have you guys add much value. You won't get to come to staff meetings. You won't be involved in decisions, but, you know, we have you so that you'll cover us so that if OSHA comes, you know, or you can go out and give safety tickets. You know, that was kind of the old way of thinking, you know, about safety. But, you know, now it's more recognized as a common and important position in companies where you can make a very positive difference, and you have opportunities to help those that don't have as much understanding of the costs of safety. So here's a cost example. So let's say Joe gets injured while working in shipping. He cuts his hand using a cutter, you know, a box cutter. It cuts deep enough that he has to get stitches. So his supervisor gets some first aid supplies from the first aid cabinet. He takes Joe to the company designated clinic for treatment and the stitches. Joe's supervisor, he waits for Joe at the clinic, you know, during his treatment, and he's outside of the treatment room. That's one of the things that you learn is that these employees, they deserve their privacy. And although we want to know what's going on with their case and help manage it properly, it's not proper to go into that treatment room with them unless they invite you. You get the paperwork and the restrictions from the clinic, and then you go back to the company location. So Joe and his supervisor, the safety manager, and the safety committee, they conduct an investigation and recommend some preventive measures, some things that they can learn from the situation, the incident that happened, so this doesn't happen again. So you find out in this example, the clinic medical bill for sutures and treatment was $1,200. Prescription for antibiotics and pain medications came to $125. And all of these could be even up more with today's, you know, inflationary world we live in. Joe's wages for half a day, you know, incident happened just after lunch, so it would equal $100, $25 an hour at 4 hours. And then the claim management cost from the insurance carrier was $200. And honestly, I think in most insurance companies that has gone up quite a bit. So that's probably 300 or more now. Initial total direct costs, assuming it's not a day away from work, injury, and that Joe can return to work immediately the next day, is $1,525. So that's just a minor injury. So think about that for a minute. It doesn't sound really significant, but say you're a company of 500 employees and you're having these things happen on a regular basis. There's risk in the workplace. It's not being fully addressed. Employees aren't fully following safety protocols. There's some real opportunities for improvement there. So let's go on with this example. So this is indirect costs from this minor injury. These overhead costs not paid for by a customer. So the indirect costs, lost productivity, Joe for 5 days at 30% reduction, 150. Lost productivity, supervisor, 180. Investigation time, 1 hour with 5 people, $600. Joe's work replacement, 4 hours, $100. Overtime costs, overtime required to make commitment. Okay, right here we just said 0. We're really not sure what that might be, but that could be quite substantial. depending on the situation. Say you've got an order that has to go out. Joe is really important to this because he's got the talent, the skill, capability to make it happen. Someone else takes much, much more time to do it, and they have to redo things sometimes. So that could actually, being really conservative here because we don't know, but it could be a lot of money. Insurance premium costs. Okay, we'll talk about this a little bit later, but insurance premium costs get set every year usually when you renew your policy, and it's based on something we'll talk about a little bit later. There's some data that gets collected, and if you have lots of injuries and they cost lots of money, then I'll just make it simple. Your insurance premiums are going to go up. So we don't know exactly what that might be, but that's significant. Paperwork and management of claims costs, 400, maybe lots more. Employee discussions, water cooler talk, 4 hours estimate, 150. If there's a even if it's minor, but it's an injury that people care about the person, they're worried about them, they want to know what happened, this could be significantly more too. Cost of cleanup from incident replacement materials, 80. So partial indirect now is 1660. That's another good chunk of money. And this is just one simple minor injury. So cost of Joe, wages are the same. He feels targeted because he had this injury, and he might have screwed up the incentive plan for not having injuries. He feels peer pressure that people feel like they've got to do more work now to make up for him. Could not hold his baby for 2 days, got a new little baby, and so he, that's frustrating for him. That's real life, and that's kind of a mental suffering he's going through. He couldn't play in the softball games for 2 weeks now. Who knows? Maybe this guy's a really good softball player. This could be, some of the main enjoyment that he gets in life, and he can't do it for 2 weeks. Disruptions through day, both on and off the job for normal tasks, added time to dress, to eat, to shower, etc. These are all frustrations. They're actual costs to an employee that's injured. He's unable to drive when taking medications, and that really screws things up because his wife might be busy working and she can't take him everywhere. So he's scrambling around trying to get rides and maybe take Uber and add more cost. And then the bottom one, he's in pain. Injuries hurt. It doesn't feel good to have an injury. It's an uncomfortable situation. So what if there's a more serious incident? Think about that. We just reviewed the costs of a minor injury. So there are many impacts to the people involved and to the company for every incident, regardless how minor it may be. But what would be the cost of a more serious type? Perhaps one that involves days away from their regular work. And they're a significant time away for one or more people. Say it's an incident where several people are injured. And then here's a real philosophical question to ask yourself. What if this were you, your son, daughter, grandson, granddaughter, etc.? Make it personal. What if it was somebody like that? Then it takes on a whole new meaning. And I know some companies are like family. And you, in my opinion, from what I've learned through the years, if you have more of that type of feeling within the company, that you take care of each other, that you watch each other's back instead of having to worry about someone stabbing you in the back, that company is safer. They earn more money. It's a better place to work. The morale is higher. So anyway, we got this thinking now that what if it's a more serious? Okay, does management understand these costs? This is a real question that you need to ask yourself, and maybe have a discussion with your manager, and hopefully at some point with the leader of the company, the president, the top level manager. And it's very likely that the majority of people in these management positions, even top management, doesn't understand these costs. So here's some recommendations. This is what I did. This is what virtually all of the safety professionals that teach at the Utah Safety Council have done at some time in their career, and it's proven to be a best practice. You get with your insurance company handling your workers' compensation claims, and you do a few things. You get the cost of your incidents for the past 5 years, and they have tons of data. They love to share it. You just have to get with them and make sure you get them to commit to get this done for you. Then you review the cost with them, and you see if these costs are final or if there's still reserves set for any claim. And reserves are, this is an estimate of what this claim may cost based on what the doctor's reports are saying and how long it is until they're going to be well from this claim. And then you get their thoughts on your indirect costs. See, these people, that this is all they do is deal with injuries and incidents, all day, every day that they work. So they're really good at this sort of thing, and you're paying your insurance company a lot of money anyway. So let's get something out of it for you to help your company. So you want to teach management about these costs that you find, and something like, a pie chart, bar charts, ways of listing this. And the insurance company people, they can help. They've got programs that they can punch this information out for you pretty easily, usually, and then just send it your way, and then you fine tune it and you got it ready for those discussions. So you put together some figures and charts for your management team, and you want to probably start right with your boss. That's probably the best place to start, is with your boss. And use this to get your budgets, projects, etc. for safety approved. So you're showing your boss and everyone else that you're being responsible. You're trying to not just be a safety cop, you're trying to lead safety. Okay, then a reminder on company profits, bonuses, etc. So if you have anything like that ties, any kind of special bonuses or anything from safety performance, and not just being lucky that you didn't have an injury. And I wish I had more time to talk about that, but I'll just say this. OSHA does not like it if every safety incentive is just tied to not having injuries. They actually send out some directives to let companies know that you should not be perceived that you're paying employees off to not have injuries, because they feel that it can drive reporting underground. So how do you handle that? Well, you do both. You track, your injuries and incidents, and then you do other performance-based safety, like attending safety meetings, writing a safety talk, participating in, safety inspections, things like that, working on a risk assessment team. And then you have all of it together as one program, and not just that people get pay for not having injuries. That's how OSHA likes it. That's actually proven to be the most effective way to do it that I've ever seen. So then you want to talk about safety as an investment in your employees and company. Let them know that just looking at it as a cost, in their budgets is, although that's their language, you want to help them evolve their thinking that safety is an actual investment in their employees and company. The safety equipment you buy, the safety systems that you put in place that will be more efficient and protect people better. You want to protect the force, because if you don't protect the employees, then what have you got? You really don't have a company. And if you don't have the employees' heart and mind and willingness, their discretional work effort, you really don't have good employees. So that's an important part of this, is to help move from that beginning stage of just looking at safety as a cost to looking at safety as an investment. eMod, experience modification factor. So what this is what insurance companies use to help determine how much they should charge you for your insurance in workers' compensation. So it's a rating number. It's calculated upon your premiums and workers' compensation claims payments. It's designed to show what risk your company is based on to similar companies in your industry and location. So it starts every company at 1. Then after 3 completed and recorded years of experience, then your eMod factor will begin to either increase or decrease. And this is also talked about in one of the segments of the occupational safety essentials class, where we go into more detail and show even more examples of how this actually works, comparing one company with another. So I just wanted to mention that there. We don't have that time to do that today, but very interesting to look at this. Some companies will start the same, and they may even pay the same amount of insurance. One company then has a whole bunch of injuries. The other company, because they have good practices and they're looking at safety as an investment, they end up having very few. So their cost goes down for insurance while the other company's cost goes way up for insurance. And that's how insurance companies make their money. They make sure that the bad actors pay a lot more. So what other safety costs are there? There's the insurance costs we touched on with workers' comp, general liability, property insurance, and all the different kinds of insurance. That's a lot of money that companies put out to try to protect their company and keep it safe. Not just safe from personal injury, but safe from all kinds of failures. Personal protective equipment, all the things that you might use, safety glasses, hard hats, gloves, boots, etc. You know, OSHA has guidelines on what you need to provide to your employees by law. And yet a lot of companies say, well, that's fine, we'll follow the law, but we'll even go beyond. And some of them even do a little bit more because they want to show that they want to protect the force. They want employees protected. They look at it as an investment. Time and facilities for safety meetings, inspections, risk assessments, safety committees, etc. Say you got a safety committee. You got 8 people on that committee that represent different areas of your company. Takes time for them to meet, go through an agenda, track the injuries that have happened, look at progressive ideas that can help reduce risk in the workplace and get people involved. Best practice safety equipment for operations, things like fire extinguishers, emergency lighting, guardrails, safe flooring, signage, stickers, on and on and on, depending on your industry. These things all cost money. So they are safety costs, but aren't they really an investment in making the company the best company it can be and to stay within the law and the regulatory agencies' standards? So time and resources for safety training for all employees. That's a cost too. But what happens when you train people and they really get it? Then you got people that are becoming leaders in safety, leaders in the company. So safety is an investment. There are several studies, and you can look this up, just Google it or Bing it or whatever you like to look, that indicate that for every dollar invested in their workplace safety programs, there's a $3 to $7 return on investment. So Liberty Mutual did a study. I've got a copy of this one right here where it goes into more detail. And this one, they talked to executives of companies. And in this one, the executives said that there was $3 or more saved for each dollar invested in workplace safety. So that right there, and this was done by the Research Institute, Liberty Mutual Insurance. And so for 65 years, Liberty Mutual had the only insurance company research institute in the world. And they did a lot of things like this. So this is a good one that you can kind of take that study to the bank. Then OSHA has done a lot of work on this with NIOSH, also researching this to find out that this is actually true. But do managers and companies know this? Probably not. And so when they're asked to spend money on safety, then they're saying, man, that's a lot of money. I'm not sure we can do that. And so then you don't have the equipment, you don't have the personal protective equipment. Sometimes you don't have what you need to keep people safe. And then somebody gets injured. And then we all wring our hands and wondered why it happened. So, you know, this is an opportunity to help teach management about these things. Do a little of your own research. I can help. You contact the Utah Safety Council. I can help find some more information on this for you also. But, you know, this is you want to have a positive public image. You want to be in compliance with regulations, laws, and standards. You want to increase your operational efficiency, and you want to improve employee satisfaction in your company. That's all about making safety an investment rather than just a cost. All right. Questions? We got some questions. Let me look here on the chat. Okay.
Okay. If anybody has questions, feel free to put them in the chat. For some reason, my video is not working, but not a problem. So that we saw in the chat box that somebody had mentioned that that they had a president tell them that he liked the way safety had always been set up. It's too much trouble to change things. So, you know, when you're showing these numbers and these data about the cost of safety, what do you think, Rob, are some ways that some approaches that you've seen or that you've taken when it comes to somebody that, you know, even if they're looking at new opportunities, new technology, what the numbers are, they might just be a little bit stuck in their ways, and maybe they're just the infrastructure. People are just nervous that, you know, the infrastructure is too much to make a significant change.
Yeah, I think that this is a very common thing. People like their comfort zones, including presidents, managers. And so what we have to do is we have to let them know that we're taking our job to help, you know, protect people and the company, you know, as a safety director very seriously. And we're learning about the best practices that can save us money, make us more efficient, and oh, by the way, get our employees home safely to their families every night. And it takes time sometimes. In the high explosives industry, it took me several years of working with a manager, and he was a young progressive guy, but he was all about production, production, production. But over that 3 years time, I had him read some books. I got articles and we talked about it. And I took him up into the plant with me and met the people and looked at some of the work and saw some of the risks. And I explained why I'm recommending what I am to him. And the final analysis, that company won the Utah Labor Commission Workplace Safety Award. And it was because that president was willing to listen and learn. And he saw a safety committee made up of our own employees that were doing the training instead of me doing it all, because they had expertise. Firemen doing fire extinguisher training, someone in the shop doing the hands-on lockout tagout training, that sort of thing. So I'd say a little bit at a time, be patient with that president. He's got a lot on his mind, and it's a tough one. I did see this other one about the handout. It has a little bit more information. I will get that to you, Annabelle, and then you can send that to the
Perfect.
to the participants.
Yeah, and it looks like they were interested in the handouts or anything else you had. We'll be able to distribute to that any materials that you have, Rob, that you either used or just have that you currently have that they might be useful to them. In fact, um, we have another question in the chat, but I just wanted to ask for those that are interested in this topic and some of the things you've touched on, what are your thoughts on are there any besides the handouts you're going to give, are there any certain websites or resources or books or certain materials that they could get their hands on right now that would be a really great start on this kind of journey that you've discussed with the cost of safety?
Yeah, I think it's amazing how much information OSHA has available on costs of injuries and how we can move to the next level where it's an investment. I think that the insurance companies that you have, if you ask these questions and have them get you in contact with their risk control or loss prevention, whatever they call it, at that insurance company, those are great resources. The Utah Safety Council in the other courses that we teach have even more detailed information. This was just kind of a introductory overview into this. In the training on occupational safety essentials, we get into more examples of employees of, that have had it cost them a lot and how it's impacted their lives and what it really costs, and we can make it more personal because we have more time. But I can say this, I know it's very personal when I have to go to a locker and I have to be there with the wife of an employee that was killed in an explosion and her whole life's changed. And, that is a very real cost when someone loses their life. When they're seriously injured, it's a very real cost. And you think that doesn't cost the company, it costs the company in a lot of ways too, not just the employee with their personal sadness and loss of life and changing the family and trials they go through. But the company experiences a lot of challenges when those serious injuries or fatalities happen. And so, this is just good common sense to move forward with this. I've got some other articles. I think one of the best books I would recommend that really gets into accidents and how we should prevent them and costs of safety and all of that would be, let's see that. Doug, are you on the call?
In fact, Doug had a question as well. We can see if we can get him on as well. His question was, can you give an example of any employees who had really, who have really had the cost of safety impact their life, show them the cost of what safety really costs and make it personal. So yeah, we can get him on. And I think since you've already kind of touched on some things that you had as real world examples, maybe you guys can both kind of address those. Are we able to get Doug on the call, or would he just have to put it into the chat box?
I think I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Doug.
All right, great
You have an idea
presentation,
there
Rob.
that might be worth sharing with people. I shared a general idea of that fatality, but you might have something in mind that you want to share that would be helpful.
Sure. Well, as you go through these things, like you say, if I've had the opportunity, unfortunately, to go to somebody's home and tell them their loved one's not coming home, and boy, what a cost that is to me. That changed my life. That changed the life of everybody in our management team by having something like that happen. And it is a cost as you do that, and it does affect everything that you're doing, not just with that. And as people realize that you care about them and their safety is important to you, you will not only save money for safety, you will be the most productive companies out there. I know from Barnes Aerospace, we went from at one point, our division was one of the least profitable divisions in all of Barnes Aerospace. And we went, because of our safety numbers was a huge factor in that, we went to 20 years now continually of being the most productive and most profitable organization in all of Barnes Aerospace. just because of the leadership and the safety process, they help make a big difference. So great presentation, Rob.
Thanks, Doug. Just one last thing that I was going to say here. There's a book called Safe by Accident, and it's by Aubrey Daniels and Judy Agnew. Just looking this up for you. And I would highly recommend this book to help get ideas to talk to your management about, to help them learn some of what they really need to know so that they can protect the force, the workforce. And, you know, there's a lot of the top safety professionals in the world will tell you that is the measure of a leader, is if they learn how to protect their workers and take it very seriously. So that's all I have, Annabelle, unless there's more questions.
Great. No, that's incredible. And honestly, I think just you being able to provide those resources that you that you'd mentioned and just those suggestions is going to be a really great place for them to start, you know, considering ways that they can start taking the ideas you have and implementing them to their job. And like you said, you know, a lot of it's incredible wherever these guys are at in the different levels of the company. I think you're right. People like presidents and leadership can be very overwhelmed. So sometimes just a few numbers or, you know, a few inspired ideas by anybody on the team can be a really great start to just get things moving. Great. I think I think we're good to go. Was there any other final thoughts you had, Rob, for us?
Just that I think a lot of people don't understand that the Utah Safety Council has a wide number of very experienced safety professionals that could actually do some consulting to help your company. So say you're a young, new safety director, and you're trying to find your way and you need a little bit of help on something. The Utah Safety Council can arrange that myself, somebody like Doug Handy, there's a whole group of very experienced safety consultants that could come and help you with things like that. There's also an opportunity to just communicate and ask for resources. And the National Safety Council, Utah Safety Council, great resource. And then these individual safety professionals also have great information that can help you on your journey to helping your company find safety excellence.
That's great. Well, thank you so much, Rob. That was really incredible. And you're absolutely right. We have an amazing team here of safety professionals, including Rob, who have a lot of just really niche and expansive experience on different aspects of safety. They do a lot of safety speaking. They do a lot of consulting, and they would be maybe a great resource to consider. So if you have any questions about some of the teaching they do through us, we can easily hook you up with them and just look at some of the options. They have a very expansive knowledge on safety. Doug Handy, Rob Gardner, so many others. So yeah, honestly, just feel free to touch base with us if you'd love to have, you know, maybe have even more talks with Rob about safety and how you could apply it to your company. Sometimes it just takes an extra pair of eyes and experience and just looking at it from a different angle just to shake things up a bit. So thank you so much, Rob. It was incredible having you. And if anybody has any questions or is interested in any more of what you have, we'll just send it your way. It looks like some people are wanting to make sure that we're able to include the name of the book that you had mentioned, as well as some of the other handouts. So it looks like they're excited to get going with the materials that you have. So we'll send that their way and just touch base with you on it.
Okay.
Great. Thank you so much.
Well,
And
thank you very much. I did put the name of the book in the chat for those of you that want to take a quick look in the chat and the author, so you can find that there. And there's certainly others too, that if you wanted to contact me later. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks, Annabelle.
Thank you, Rob. And it looks like he did put in that chat from Rob Gardner, the book Safe by Accident by Aubrey Daniels and Judy Agnew. If there's any snags with seeing that in the chat, we'll just send it along with everything else. But you should be able to see that now as well if you want to Google it immediately. So great. Thank you, Rob. I think we're leading it off with putting it to our next Start with Safety and just leading the people. So we've got, I think John's going, and then we'll get on to the rest of it.
I don't have anything. I just want to thank Rob and of course, we'll thank Doug Handy for chiming in for our monthly therapy session with Doug and Robert.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Rob. That was an incredible lesson. And it looks like everybody has a lot that they want to start applying immediately. So for those of you that are still here, we just want you to know we do have an upcoming webinar April 4th at 10. That's with fire safety, how not to burn the world down. Sounds like a really important topic that we should all be highly consider. That's with Andrew McCormick. That's the Utah State Fire Marshal's office, was where he works and has a lot of experience in things related to fire. And you can check our website for more details and additional dates for 2023. We have a lot of really incredible speakers coming up this year, each month. And so you can feel free to sign up to any of these that you want, and just log in maybe while you're working, maybe, maybe you work during the day, but it's easy just to, kind of like me, put on your headphones and just listen to some of these incredible speakers so you can get, expand your knowledge about safety. So thank you so much, you guys. It was great to have you this time around, and we just look forward to seeing you, whether it's with us, coming for classes and other things we offer, or even just our next Start with Safety. We'd love to have you, or even occupational safety essentials. So thanks so much, guys.